Jackson's Thriller album.
Stories in the Room.
This is Michael Jackson's Thriller album, Stories in the Room. Join film composer Anthony Marinelli, who programmed synthesizers for 7 songs on Thriller, and A&R veteran film producer Stephen Ray, who assisted Quincy Jones and was in the studio every day with Quincy and Michael.
Michael Jackson's Thriller album, Stories in the Room.
I'm Anthony Marinelli with my longtime close friend and co-host, Stephen Ray, bringing you the real stories directly from the talented people in the room with us during the making of Thriller, the greatest selling album of all time. It's my great pleasure to introduce and share stories with my buddy Greg Phillinganes. In my opinion, the key musician contributor to every one of Michael Jackson's solo albums, including Thriller. His musical touch on keyboards and outstanding artistry can be heard and felt all over his records.
In this segment, Greg tells us about the working process with Rod Temperton, Vincent Price, Van Halen, and how the love that Quincy created in the room played a key role in getting the best performances out of everyone.
That leads us into Thriller. I mean, more or less, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I mean, in terms of, I look at it like you were very fortunate to go to undergrad with Stevie Wonder and graduate school at the University of Quincy Jones.
Yeah, I would say that. It's a very strong university. Yeah.
Yes, very strong. How involved with you in the demos in terms of Thriller?
The songs that Rod wrote, he did all the demos and he did every part, everything.
Yes, he did.
Everything, all the little ear candy parts you hear, that's all from Rod.
Yes.
In the title track Thriller, layers and layers of parts, and they're all from Rod. Multiple guitar parts, all that stuff. The synth, the synth bass line is Rod's.
Yep.
Everything really amazing.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that because so many people don't realize that Rod came to the studio when he would come over from London. He came really prepared. I mean, like you said, all the arrangements, things were laid out, really prepared. And what I meant in terms of you,
I mean, he was just so brilliant. And there was actually one thing that he wasn't quite prepared for, which is insane. He arrives in LA from London, and he's told that Vincent Price is going to do this monologue thing near the end of the song. So what does he do? Like in the cab ride to the studio, Rod is writing out the monologue that he's going to say. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a little poem. It turned out to be a poem, and he's writing it in a cab ride to the studio from the airport.
Yeah, because that, the night before, Quincy realized that Vincent had never done anything to a rhythmic track, So Rod,
right.
He initially they thought, he's just going to freestyle it. But Quincy said, wait a minute, he doesn't know how many bars. We got to have a structure. And normally I would pick up Rod in the morning. But that morning he had a meeting with A&M with his publisher, with Rondor. And so he took a taxi.
Oh, okay.
Because I would pick him up.
Oh, so it's not like he came in. It's not like he arrived from a flight. He was already here, but
he was at the old Westwood Marquee, and I would pick up Quincy in the morning, then go get Rod, and then we come to the studio. Or if Quincy went to yoga, Rod would take a taxi. But yeah, he only had that morning to write that, and he ended up writing it in the taxi, which was. Yeah, when you think about that, and of course, Greg, there's a third verse that unless you go on YouTube now, you can hear the third verse. But he wrote 3 verses on the record. There's only 2. Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. I remember, when Vincent walked into the studio, I was just like, oh my God, it's Vincent Price.
Yeah,
dude, and I will always regret not being there for that.
I was there for that.
Yeah.
I was there for that.
You were?
He was in the room.
Both of you got to meet him?
I saw him in the hallway, but it wasn't like I was going to go up to him and stop there was like a tremendous inertia at Westlake of things happening, of that and the stuff that we were responsible for doing. And then we were also working on that E.T. album at the same time. So it wasn't like I was going to go disrupt anything. Right. Same thing with when Van Halen showed up. Like I was the leader on that Union session and he was there. It was just so many things like that. And if I remember correctly, that wasn't the only, those aren't the only lyrics that Rod changed, because Thriller was originally a disco song, I think, called
Yeah, it was called
Starlight,
Starlight.
It was Starlight.
right?
Yeah.
So that, like, the whole thing of the way Thriller happened was all throwdown. I mean, the lines that Rod had on the demo, I remember him singing them to you, and then you playing them on synths of sounds that Michael was playing on a record player, and having, like, the night before, I was preparing the sounds and he was like moving the needle on the record player, and it was like Prince and The Time and Morris Day and all these like funky sounds, and you go, no, I like that one, get that one, can you do that one? And then the next day I'd have these sounds ready with a ton of synths, and then he was singing the lines, and then you'd come in, and I was just like doing whatever anybody wanted in terms of the programming. I was like in the Greg school. I was in elementary school with Greg Phillinganes, learning about how to play like funky stuff, how to make the stuff sing and talk and everything. But anyway, the song evolved. Like by the time it got to Vincent Price, like I was there strictly originally because I was doing movie scores. So Quincy was thinking ahead of his time, like about MTV and cinematic songs. And then look what happened. Thriller became like a movie, right? And he was thinking visually because he could. He came from that, so he was like merging it all together, and the songs were visual, but they actually changed the name. They like turned on a dime and took one of the songs that was supposed to go on the album, and then we rebuilt the song, and there were no rhythm section players left. So it was just, I programmed the drums and then you played everything. And then I guess Jerry Hay did his brass arrangement. That's it. That's you.
So JR's not on that?
No,
that's
drum machine.
It's this Lindrum machine right here. It's just the drum machine.
Wow.
And David Williams, rest his soul too.
Yeah.
Boy, that's another loss.
Yes.
He became a really good friend of mine after Thriller. But that's it. It's you, David, playing the parts, and Michael.
Yeah.
Michael pushed the button on the I remember that sound that starts Thriller. The boo.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's right. He did. Right.
He pushed the little red button on the 2600 to make. He called it the falling star, like falling star.
Yeah.
So
and that's what was
indicative,
interesting. That's so crazy because it was originally called Starlight, so it's almost like the sound stayed.
It's a throwback. And it reminded me of like childhood too, like, wishing upon a star. And I don't know, the whole thing is like a dream and a fairy tale all rolled into one. But it evolved all by the time it got to Vincent Price, it was turning into a movie. And then he got some sound effects guys to throw some doors and creaks. But the wind is 2600. They played the pipe organ on synclavier. The theremin is 2600.
I remember that.
Yeah.
The bass is 2600.
A lot of people 2600.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's Mini Moog, but you can't make it on a Mini Moog. I'll show you on your 2600 because you can't do pulse width modulation on the Mini Moog. Yes, 100%.
Okay.
ARP 2600.
Wow.
It has to be an old ARP 2600.
I was going to say it's got to be an older one. Yeah.
Well, I have the recommissioned one from Cord, but it looks just like the original,
Well, the older one,
the keyboard. And
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Well, you could revisit it. This is the 26. All this gear here is like the original. Like I went off and did movie scores for 20 years and I didn't have any of this stuff up and running. Now I brought it all back. It's all up and running and have like all the original Thriller, whatever, all the stuff that I played on. All these synths are the original synths. And that's 2600 right there. Okay,
let me just say this. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I am so getting with you. I'm getting together with you. I don't know when it's going to happen. But it's going to happen sooner than later. We have much to talk about.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I'm glad to hear that because I feel the same way. I know. I mean, I had some really amazing times with you, Greg, and just to put it out there and learning from you, and you were so gracious, taking me out on record dates and allowing me to continue programming with you, because it was really something special for me.
and working with you on your albums and everything. So, to this day though, you just never stopped, and it's about the music and the songs. Cause that's, you said that earlier, and you always stay connected to that. It's not about sounds and everything. They're just like tools to get the emotion of the song.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Communication.
Right. You have to have something that's the foundation. Or else, it's just hot air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I know you would just stop. Like if it's not right and it's like, no, let's get this right. Whether it's the feel so that the song flies.
Yeah. I remember that.
Song,
I remember that, Anthony. Greg would just stop and say, no, hold up. until he figured
one thing wasn't right.
Right.
Because one little linchpin makes all the difference sometimes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Or you'd hear somebody play something, you go, what was that? What was that? Wait a minute. No, not that. And then you'd find it and get inside it. And then there was something, and that's the beauty of like how things were done back then too, when you had everybody of that level of talent,
At that level. And you had the time to go through the process.
Right.
No
exactly.
doubt.
Yeah, you really did. And it's amazing.
Hey, Steven, wait a minute, man. You met Vincent?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was right there in A. We were in B.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. We were going
you want to meet everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you met everybody.
Yeah. I met everybody. Yeah.
I didn't meet him.
Yeah. I met.
Okay, but wait, what did he say?
He just said, nice to meet you. And he walked in and I said, hello, Mr. Price. He goes, hello, young man. And he walked into the room. I opened the door for him to walk into A.
Hello, young man.
And when he walked into A and Quincy got up, The one thing I always loved about Quincy,
that is insane.
He greeted everyone the same. If he was just so full of love and joy, and
exactly.
He greeted everybody the same.
That's right.
Whether you could have been the prince of
everybody
whatever, the president, he greeted everybody the same. You could be the kid from
the janitor. It's
exactly same thing, man. He
exactly right.
I always
love that. That's right. And that's one of the things I learned from him too.
Yes. Like you, Greg. I met so many people with him. Cary Grant. I can go on and on and on. All the people that all of his friends. But he was really
the access.
His access was
the access.
And he would do the same thing.
But you're right.
He would introduce people and say, "Oh, Roper. Oh, Cary, this is Roper."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Which is his nickname.
Terrible.
As his nickname for me is like he wouldn't say Steven.
But he hugged me the first time, and I never had anybody hug me like a man hug me the first time I meet him.
Yeah.
I go to the studio and I was like, wow, this is like a whole different setup here.
Exactly. And it was all right. And it was all based out of love.
Yeah.
That's why he got the best out of everybody, because it was based out of love.
Yes.
I do not subscribe to producers or MDs or leaders of any kind who lead by intimidation. It does not work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Especially in music. When music is the whole idea behind music is creating something that gives people joy. How can you provide joy to people when you're tense?
Yeah.
When you're scared?
Yeah.
Compute.
Right. One of the questions, as Greg and Anthony, Anthony and I talked about this a lot, is that when people wonder, oh my God, what was it like? Everybody had a good time. We all had a good time. The energy in the room, it was just so full of, it was supportive.
We knew we were going to have fun.
Yes.
Back then on multi-track, 24-track, they would have to decide sometimes, like a guitar part would have to go in order to put a new guitar part on, because we didn't have like 3,000 tracks back then.
Right.
So they would have to like make decisions. And if a guitar part went away, that guitarist was still, Quincy would say, thank you. Everything was love, all good, person's back. And there's no hard feelings. It's just like, it's about people too, and getting the best out of people. And there was no negativity.
Join us for the next episode of Michael Jackson's Thriller album, Stories in the Room, with your hosts, Anthony Marinelli and Stephen Ray. Watch our extended interviews on youtube.com/@storiesintheroom. Audio-only interviews are available on all podcast networks. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok @StoriesInTheRoom. For the latest news and links, visit the website, storiesintheroom.com. This podcast is produced by Christian D. Bruun and David Wolf, recorded by Audivita Studios. Additional recording by Ben Rackless. Edited by Jay Spang and Sean Hedinger. Music by Anthony Marinelli and Stephen Ray.
Michael Jackson's Thriller album.